There we are, Tuesday morning, January 28th, 2025. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow here in Chippewa Falls. Nice to have you along on this Tuesday morning, where, as usual, we talk to our social media manager, Sharita Booker, and our community editor, Christina Laurie, about popular stories from our sites this week. The passing recently of Bob Uecker is certainly tops among them. We'll also talk to Hans Breitenmoser about Donald Trump's first week in office of his second term and its likely impact for Wisconsin farmers and, frankly, everybody else, given some of the recent moves going on out there. And we'll talk to Chad Holmes as well, and we'll hear the latest from conservative Attorney General candidate Brad Schimmel about the January 6th insurrectionists getting pardoned by President Trump. All that and more just ahead on this Tuesday morning. We'll get the show started at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network and right here. We'll see you soon.
Wisconsin from Civic Media. This is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Hans Breitenmoser.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Tuesday morning, January 28th, 2025, and it is another beautiful day to have you here up north. What are the odds? We have a great winning streak going here. A beautiful day to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network, on the Civic Media app, on demand by podcast, or watching us on Facebook or YouTube. Thank you for starting your day right here. I've got some questions for you. Do you have all the information you need to vote in the upcoming primary election? I have a follow-up. Did you know that there is an upcoming primary election in Wisconsin? And my follow-up to that would be, do you want to know more about the upcoming primary election? Well, lucky you, here I am with more. You've heard about the big state Supreme Court race, and we'll talk about that this morning as well. But there is not a primary for that race. The general election will be April 1st, between conservative Brad Schimmel and Dane County Judge Susan Crawford. And I said more about that in a minute. However, there is also a race for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. And that's the job that Tony Evers had before he became governor, for example. And Jill Underly is the incumbent. She is running for a second term as State Superintendent of Public Instruction. But there are two other challengers, and so with three candidates, there will be a primary on February 8th, hold on. We're going to look at that calendar because I want to say the date. And then I go, wait, are you sure, Pat? Because it's early in the morning. It is February 18th, 3 weeks from today. 3 weeks from today is when those three candidates will face off. And because it's a nonpartisan race, it's just that the top two vote getters will advance. And we are talking next week to at least two, if not all three, of the candidates for state superintendent. We will be talking to the incumbent, Jill Underly, next week, Tuesday morning at 7:30. We'll be talking to one of the challengers, Jeff Wright, on Wednesday morning of next week at 7:05. And we are still working with the folks at Brittany Kinzer's campaign to nail down a date to interview her. So those three will face off on February 18th. Now, if you want to know more information about voting, where to vote, what else is on your ballot, maybe there are some local nonpartisan races, go to myvote.wi.gov. Find out more about getting yourself registered and all prepared to vote. So there you go. We start the morning off with a little public service announcement. Let's see. On the program today, well, it's Tuesday. We talked to a couple of my Up North News colleagues. We'll talk to social media manager Sharita Booker and community editor Christina Laurie. We talk on Tuesdays about the stories and the posts that Wisconsin's been talking about most of the past week. To no one's surprise, across Wisconsin, we're all still telling stories about the late, great Bob Uecker. Just 2 days after the Brewers broadcasting legend would have turned 91 years old. So we'll talk a bit about that today. It also seems, looking ahead to our second hour, like President Trump has proposed some new kind of tariff like every day that he's been in office so far. This is day 9. Some of them are happening. Some of them have just been bluster and haven't turned into something real. But things are also a little different this time, as other nations are better prepared to strike back against the U.S. quickly if Donald Trump ignites another trade war. And dairy farmer Hans Breitenmoser will join us at 7:30 to talk about the impact on Wisconsin farming, exports, frankly, the impact on all of us if things go sideways once again with a Donald Trump-inspired trade war. We'll talk to Chad Holmes as well from 98.9 WXCO in Wausau. His program follows this one at 8 o'clock up there in the Wausau area and on the Civic Media app. And it's on the Civic Media app where you can follow us. You can call into the show. You can text the show, all by using that Civic Media app that you can download and listen to all the stations across the Civic Media Radio Network. Or to reach our show here, you can call or text us directly, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Love to get those text messages there and the comments on Facebook and YouTube. And we may show them up on screen on our social media video feeds. You can email the show as well, radio@upnorthnewswi.com. You can also go to the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us, to learn more about the stations around Wisconsin, the shows, and all things Civic Media. 6 a.m. temperatures at the bus stop look like this. It's 23 here on Lake Wissota, 22 in Hayward, Amory 26, Wausau 19, La Crosse 20, Wisconsin Rapids 21, Green Bay's at 24 degrees, Madison 25, it's 21 in Waukesha, and it's 27 degrees at Radio Park in Racine, where we find one Greg Bach standing by. Mr. Bach, you are in a sweatshirt with sleeves today? It looks
I got sleevey sweatshirts.
I was just about to make the comment of how much we would have complained about temps in the 20s not that long ago. And yet now, after last week, temps in the 20s feel just downright balmy. And here we are wearing long sleeves again today, which tells me spring's coming, that we're acclimating. We're going to be ready for those warmer temperatures when they finally get here.
I'm always ready for 50s and 60s. Like that's my sweet spot right there. 70s okay. After that, it gets a little too warm. And then below in the 40s, you're like, it can be, if there's no wind, you're like, this is fine. But the moment the wind starts, like I took Maybells at the dog park yesterday. It was 41 degrees, but the wind was out. So as soon as we got there, like, this was a bad idea.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
No.
And that's life here. Again, it's not fires, it's not earthquakes, it's not hurricanes, but we have these.
But darn, it's chilly.
I get a little chilly. Where's my shawl? I need a shawl at the dog park. No, so Brittany Merlot is hopefully wrapping up. I don't remember what she said she was doing for her time off, but I hope it's a lot of fun and.
I bet you it includes an activity that's more extreme than I'm comfortable with.
Oh, absolutely. That is her way. She's our little daredevil. So we'll find out more about that. I think tomorrow we have her back on.
I won't.
Oh, wait a minute. Is today? This is the intersection. Brittany comes back tomorrow, but Greg will be gone.
I'm gone for good, folks. Goodbye. It was nice
knowing everyone.
Not
for good. No.
Bye.
You're coming back. No. And then about the time Greg comes back is when I take off. And
exactly.
So and Kristen was gone before that. We will eventually get the whole gang back together in one box on your computer screen if you're watching the show.
It's
or
like
in your radio box soon.
It's like Game of Thrones seasons 3 through 5, where they're like, all right, well, we're going to go on a journey, and they don't see each other for decades.
Yeah, no dragons involved in this one.
Yeah,
beaches by and large, or other fun activities, but
barbecue.
Oh, that always works. I'm ready for that
barbecue.
as well. Yeah,
barbecue.
So yeah, that's right. So you've got yours coming up. That's going to be. We'll compare notes. It'll be great. All right. Sounds good. Coming up across Civic Media today on the Maggie Dawn Show this afternoon, former U.S. Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn will be holding a news conference today at the state capitol in Madison, in the same room where the fake electors met. Maggie will then talk to him on her show about Trump pardoning some 1,500 criminals who beat him and other law enforcement officers throughout the day-long attack on the U.S. Capitol. Harry Dunn also has thoughts on Attorney General candidate Brad Schimmel, who had been whining that the insurrectionists weren't getting special treatment. That's all coming up in the 2 p.m. hour of the Maggie Dawn Show. At 3 o'clock, she'll be talking to Sean Fettiplace from Main Street Alliance on Medicaid expansion as a priority for small businesses, because they want to find and retain good workers, and that gets a lot easier when there's a level playing field and folks can access stable, affordable health insurance. So all of that coming up on the Maggie Dawn Show at 2 o'clock across the Civic Media Radio Network. You can sign up for our unabashedly Wisconsin news over at UpNorthNewsWI.com. Click subscribe at the top of our homepage. In today's newsletter, Christina Laurie asks, how long does it take for a new activity, like regular workouts, to become a habit? Does it take days or weeks or months? The answer is somewhere in the middle there, and we'll hear more about that or learn more about that in Christina's newsletter. She also introduces you to Pat Giles, a Wisconsin gym owner, and past winner of America's Most Inspiring Trainer. And he'll talk about favorite techniques to stay focused on your exercise plan. So that's coming up in our newsletter today, and you can sign up for future editions. Head over to UpNorthNewsWI.com and click subscribe. Let's see, here's a question from Tony on YouTube. Will Bach and the Doc make a return? Yes, they will. So yeah, come on back for that when I step away in a little under 2 weeks here. Quick check on sports coming up on 6:17 here. The Bucks were winners in Utah last night, 125-110. Giannis and Damian Lillard each scored 35 points. The Bucks have now won 9 of their last 11, and they traveled right from Salt Lake out to Portland, where they will take on the Trailblazers tonight, and then they will take a couple of days off to come home. The next game will be Friday at home. In the college rankings, the Badger men's basketball team moved up in the AP Top 25 from 18th to 17th ranked in the nation. They next will play at Maryland tomorrow evening, and you can catch that game on several Civic Media radio stations. Coverage begins at 5 o'clock and also on the Civic Media app. The Marquette men's basketball team also moved up in the AP poll from number 10 to number 9, and they are in Indianapolis tonight to play Butler. To no surprise, the Wisconsin Badger women's hockey team is the number 1 team in the nation still, and they will next play at University of Minnesota Duluth, the 6th-ranked team in the nation. That'll be coming up Friday and Saturday. The men's hockey team will be in the Twin Cities this weekend to take on the Minnesota Gophers Friday and Saturday evenings, and you can hear the coverage of that game on our Wisconsin Rapid station, WFHR. So tune in for all of that. We also have today's history lesson coming up a little bit later on this hour. But coming up next, we'll talk about some of the headlines here. We'll talk a bit about what else Attorney General candidate Brad Schimmel has to say about the insurrectionists who were recently pardoned by President Trump. You would think a law and order so-called candidate like Brad Schimmel would be sharply critical of President Trump for pardoning all these criminals who violently attacked officers. At least you think he would if he truly does back the blue, right? We'll have details in a bit. I'm Pat Kreitlow, and you're up north. There are some days when we have so much going on the history lesson calendar, we can't fit it all in one segment. And so then we give you a few nuggets along the way. Here's one of them. It was on this day that Stevie Wonder released this song, My Sherry Amore. This day when? I had no idea the song was this old. Stevie Wonder released this song on this day in 1969. One of my favorites from Stevie Wonder. And now we're talking with Up North News social media manager Sharita Booker about some of the more popular posts of the past week. Hey, Sharita, how are you?
Good, Pat. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being here. Thanks for all you do to get all of our many, many stories up on social media. All the platforms are out there. Go check out the things that she posts that she and the rest of the team all work on. This week, the more popular posts are pretty predictable, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that some of them are melancholy, but also I think they all center on great things about Wisconsin. So the first one is definitely in both categories. It's a little melancholy, but it's a great thing about Wisconsin, and that would be Leinenkugels. Which is still brewed in Wisconsin, still being brewed in Milwaukee. But for those of us here in Chippewa Falls, it's a melancholy thing. And, the final activity at the brewery was definitely noted by readers of a particular post, Sharita.
Yeah, so the final whistle was recently blown for employees at Leinenkugels in Chippewa Falls, and Muslim Coors has officially shut down the brewery. Chippewa Falls resident Tiffany Wogan heard the whistle and told us she can't believe this is really happening. She also posted to Facebook saying, I saw an employee walking out as I took a photo and told them, I am so sorry this is happening to them and to the city. That post had almost 2,000 likes on our Facebook. And John said, this is tough. If someone bet me Leinenkugels would be non-existent in Chippewa Falls, I would have lost everything. Unfortunately, it's out of our hands unless a miracle happens. My heart is with the employees and their families and community. We definitely will give business to the gift shop as always. It won't be the same. And Jenks said, what a shame. The brewery is historic.
Well, it is, and it'll still be there, perhaps to be reused or repurposed in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, the Liney Lodge is still there. It's still still going to be a tourist attraction, still a nice place to gather. But yeah, that final whistle, and for folks that don't know, they have just, your old style factory whistle. I live 3 to 4 miles out of town from the brewery, and I hear it every day at noon. Well, heard it every day at noon, and then it blew at the end of the work shift, and that was it for the brewery. I don't know what else we can possibly say except to be grateful for all the people that put comments on the post, liked it, shared it, as our own little love letter to Chippewa Falls and to the Liney's family. Now it's been in big brewery hands for a long time now, but business did what business is going to do. And like you said, we can just hope for the best, in the future here. In the meantime, we can look at other attractions around Wisconsin. And this one is a very popular one. Train rides are still popular. They're not the dominant form of passenger service anymore in the age of the automobile, but for romance and good old fashioned food, you can't beat the right kind of train ride. Tell the folks about one of the posts we had about a particular train ride.
So the pizza train, also known as the Wisconsin Great Northern Railroad in Trago, is a year-round train ride, and guests can choose from fresh baked pepperoni, sausage, or cheese pizza while enjoying a 2-hour trip through the deep woods, which also stops at Bean Creek Trestle. Tickets for those are $40 for 13 and up, and $32 for children's ages 2 through 12. That post also had more than 1,000 likes, and Denise said, gosh, I've never heard about this. Sounds like it would be a real hoot. Got to add it to the list. And a lot of people in the comments were asking for more details. So I went in there and dropped the link to the website so you guys can check that out, buy some tickets, and see all the details.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, I see here now it does run alongside the Namakagon River, which is, anybody that drives past that, or maybe some folks, maybe canoe, kayak, or fish on there. It's gorgeous. It's a wonderful place to have a train line that would otherwise be completely dead. It would be converted into trails. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but to still have a bit of rail service like this is a really nice thing. Glad people noted. Go back to the post now, find that link that Sharita put in there, and learn more. Maybe you can take a ride on it as well. Well, we have to note again that with the recent passing of Mr. Baseball, it's something that was again one of our popular posts because people wanted to remember. They wanted to have some time together to share some stories or just leak to other people, or just put links to other people to take a look at this post about Bob Euchre, and folks really did that at one of our posts in particular there, Sharita.
Yeah, so his absence is deeply felt across the community, and fans have come together to honor him, and they've been leaving flowers, Brewers baseball hats, and Miller Lite cans and bottles at his two statues at American Family Field. Some of those bottles have bursted because it is so freezing out here. Sandy said, "Need to rename the field for Uke." And Kelly said, "Will be forever missed, Mr. Baseball, R.I.P." And we have tons of Euchre posts within this last week that you guys can check out, honoring him also.
It's been really nice, when you're scrolling. Again, we're sad to have lost him, but to be able to see the stories, the photos, live through all the memories is wonderful. And we're going to continue that with our community editor Christina Laurie coming up in just a little bit here. But Sharita Booker, social media manager, thanks for taking us through the more popular posts of the past week. Have a great day.
You too, Pat.
6:28 now, and let's talk for a bit just again about the Wisconsin race for state Supreme Court, a seat that includes a run by former Wisconsin Attorney General Brad Schimmel, Attorney General during Scott Walker's second term in office. And he said Monday that while he thinks anyone convicted of assaulting law enforcement officers should serve their entire sentence, he also did not object to President Trump using his power to pardon some 1,500 rioters last week. Schimmel said that Trump has issued pardons. Presidents have the power to pardon. It's a power they have. I don't object to them utilizing that power. Schimmel's also endorsed in the race by dozens of sheriffs, the Milwaukee Police Association, and others. And it's not just Schimmel. I'd like every one of these groups to also go on record. What do they really think of Donald Trump pardoning all these people who beat police officers? It might say something about their endorsement of Brad Schimmel as well. Christina Laurie's next. You're up north.
I've been near
All right, welcome back. It is time for the Uplift. Christina Laurie joins us, our community editor. She puts together our newsletter and all kinds of other great posts that you can find on social media. Get the newsletter by signing up at UpNorthNewsWI.com. Christina, hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Pat?
I think I'm good. I think I'm like a lot of Wisconsin is. It's been a little time now to process the passing of Bob Uecker. We're going to start with that today, because again, you get the melancholy of his passing, but also the knowledge that he didn't just have 90 good years. He was really close to 91 good years, wasn't he?
He was less than 2 weeks shy of his 91st birthday, which would have been on Sunday. But I mean, what a run over the past 2 weeks. We've been celebrating him. And I was thinking about this. It's very rare that a person knows within their own lifetime how loved they are. So many times, we wait until someone dies to celebrate their life. I feel like we've been celebrating him for the past 5 decades. Milwaukee knew how special he was the entire time. And I like to think that he felt all that love too, all along.
Oh, I think he did. And, the stories, I mean, gosh, so many stories where, again, he knew he was a big deal. He knew he was loved, but he did not, act the part of the big deal in many cases. He still had a locker in the locker room where the players were, according to Brian Anderson, who just had some wonderful memories that he gave on MLB TV. Never wore a media credential because he never wanted to think of himself as being in the media, that he was part of the team and he could talk to anybody. People loved to talk to him as well. One of my favorite stories that Brian Anderson talked about was when he was fairly new to the team and getting to know Bob Uecker. And he said Uecker just kind of more or less ignored him for the first few weeks, as he was getting into the job and everything. They just hadn't really broken the ice yet. And he says Uecker came up to him one day and said, "You want to play golf on such and such on like Monday or Tuesday?" And he says, "Sure." And Uecker says, "Okay, well, you make the arrangements." Well, they're in Miami, and he says, BA says he called all over trying to find something. And he finally found through a connection of a friend, a golf course, but it was closed on Mondays or Tuesdays. And so he arranged to have the guy, to have the course opened and for the chef to come in at the country club. And the whole time Uecker's playing golf with them and talking to them, and they're getting to know each other. And he's like, "I can't believe nobody is out here. It's such a gorgeous day. Why is it such a dead day here today?" And he says, that he never told Uecker about it. I don't know how you could have missed it.
It's funny that you said he never wore media credentials, because I actually wasn't going to bring this up because it was just such a tiny encounter. I only met Bob Uecker one time, and it was incredibly briefly. I had just moved here to take a job at a local news station in Madison in January, and I was the morning show reporter, so I got sent out before Brewers opening day 2.5 months later to do some on-field interviews. And I was really excited because as a baseball fan, I got to talk to Gorman Thomas, and that was super fun. But also there, just sitting in a chair by himself, I, not being from the state of Wisconsin, was embarrassingly unfamiliar with Bob Uecker at the time. But there he was, just sitting in a chair by himself, not doing any interviews, just being there. I mean, and it was 4:30 a.m. They were going to have a night opening day game. Mm-hmm. And he was just going to be there the entire time. That's how much he loved baseball. And you would have never known he was the most important person in that entire stadium. But just a few other stories that have just really touched me. I mean, they keep pouring in as they have been for the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. One that I just think is super cool. Remember last year, all the players on every MLB team, they designed custom bats and cleats for Players Weekend.
Mhm.
And Christian Yelich, they have to put in their orders way ahead of time. So the weekend happened in late August. So Yelich had already put in his order, but he was injured then. So
Oh,
he
yeah.
was unable to use the bats that he had ordered. But his were special bats that had Euchre's face on them, and they said for Euch. And so he has this entire locker full of unused bats. So after Bob passed, he took a picture of them and said, I think you guys are going to see these sometime this season. So we have
Aw.
that to look forward to. I thought that was pretty incredible. Also, the story, it's going to give me goosebumps even just repeating it. But Bob's last Brewers home run call
Mhm.
was not just a home run, it was a grand slam, and it was by Jackson Chorio, which just is you couldn't write a story better than that. A 90-year-old announcer who started the franchise calling not just a home run, but a grand slam for the 20-year-old up-and-comer who's going to bring that franchise into the future. I mean, you could hear the emotion in Bob Uecker's voice. We have it posted on our Up North News page if you look under our reels, because it really is chill-inducing.
There are, let's see, another one that I really liked, and some of these go way back, especially to 1964. He was with the Cardinals at that point. They were in the World Series, and to kind of loosen up the team a bit before they took on the Yankees in Game 2, he strapped on a tuba and was kind of blaring out with his tuba out in the outfield and shagging fly balls with it at the same time. So, I mean, this isn't like some TV shtick or something for the radio booth. This is who he's always been.
And before he did that, earlier that season, when they went in for their team picture,
Mhm.
he decided to hold hands with the player next to him, and they actually got fined for that. So
The player, I believe, was Bob Gibson, and
yeah.
that was not going to go over very well in the 1960s for a host of reasons. But of course, those two are joking around. They don't care, you know?
Well, and what was so funny too is Bob Gibson, of all people, he was like notorious for not even talking to people. When he made the All-Star team, he would not talk to players on his own team for that game because they were his competitors for the rest of the season. So that's how serious of a guy he was. And that Bob Uecker got him to crack and hold hands for a picture is just amazing. And it also shows the other great thing about Bob is that we all love Bob, and Bob loved everyone. So when it was unpopular in the 60s to be, sitting beside a black player, let alone holding his hand, he was the first one to do that. All the way up to all of the minor leaguers that just come up through the system and may only be on the roster for literal hours. People have always said that Bob makes the intention to introduce himself. He learns their name. He learns how to pronounce it. He knows where they're from. He's asking them questions about their home country. He was just the most inclusive person and really the best ambassador we could have here in Wisconsin, transcending sports.
Oh, without a doubt. And by the way, transcending sports in this way as well, whether you think wrestling is a sport or not. But I was so surprised to see the WWE of all entities. There's a clip out there where the ringside announcers pause, amongst all the yelling and the whole fracas that's going on in the stands. And you could hear the whole crowd start to quiet as they start talking about Bob Uecker and showing some of his clips from when he would make appearances at WrestleManias from the past. Like, I guess he was in WrestleMania 3, which tells you how far back that goes, that he was there. And I had no idea that he had taken part in some of these things. And you see him wrestling around and posing shirtless with like Andre the Giant and some others. I never knew that part of him.
Well, so that WrestleMania 3, because you sent that to me, I thought it was so fascinating. So I did a little deep dive on that. And the WrestleMania 3 was back in 1987. The headliners that year were Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan. And then Bob did such a good job as being like the guest ring leader or whatever they call it there. He was invited back the following year, and he did backstage interviews with them. And that's where you might have seen the famous picture of Andre pretending to choke him. They include that in pretty much every WWE highlight reel ever since. But then, like, that wasn't even enough. There's a WWE Hall of Fame, and Bob Uecker was inducted into it in 2010. So if you think his 2003 Hall of Fame speech was good, I recommend also looking up that WWE one from 2010, because he tells some other jokes that were super funny, and it just is typical Bob. He tells a story, which I actually do think he included in his baseball Hall of Fame speech as well, of how when the Cardinals were giving out their World Series rings at the beginning of the following season, they just threw his into left field.
Yeah.
And he said he found it by the fifth. But he had a funny quip. He said all the other players had to have their rings handed to them. It's just like so typical Bob.
There was also the time that he was in a Speedo for a photo spread in Sports Illustrated in 2008. And he always referred to it as his swimsuit issue. Because he was poolside along with Corey Hart and JJ Hardy. And that photo of him in the Speedo was also put on a t-shirt at one point with all the team wearing it. And he was always had, took it in good stride.
Well, we need to point out that this thing that he calls his swimsuit edition, that was accidental. He was just in the back of a picture of Corey Hart playing ping pong. And then people zoomed in and was like, is that Uecker in a Speedo? Yes, it is Uecker in a Speedo. So the team actually surprised them then for a road trip. They all had those shirts made. And what was even better, they wore them all under plaid suits, very reminiscent of 80s Uecker at the time. So they all just showed up to their road trip in this Uecker gear, and Bob loved it.
Oh, without a doubt. And, you think of all the broadcast partners that he had, over the years. There was Jim Powell, there was Pat Hughes. There was just so many over time that, it's created its own, family tree, if you will, of announcers, people who worked alongside him. And so he had that reputation, just like a Vin Scully, like an Ernie Harwell. I was going to say Harry Carey. Harry's kind of in a different little universe there of his own in Chicago. But, in terms of beloved sportscasters in their hometowns, I mean, Uecker's right up there in terms of the professionalism. He's a funny guy, but the professionalism that he brought to calling a baseball game.
Bob Costas was one that was tremendously impacted by him. And he told an interesting story the other day on the Today Show after Uecker's death. He was saying that he called his last game with Bob near the end of last season. He made it a point to make it out there to call a few innings with Uecker. And he was just raving about him, which of course, like, Bob Costas is very esteemed in his own right. He could take the credit himself. He didn't have to say that Uecker shaped him, but he did. And something else he pointed out was that Uecker didn't stay in Milwaukee just because he loved Milwaukee. He stayed there because it was his home, it was his community, and he had a ton of offers from much bigger teams, much bigger markets. He, in the 80s, turned down an offer to go to the Yankees from George Steinbrenner. And he changed that all just because he loves the Brewers. He was a Brave turned Brewer, and he was, it's rare to find that loyalty in sports nowadays.
Oh my gosh, it's almost invisible. So that when you see it, it's such a breath of fresh air, which by the way, is also part of the reason why Craig Counsell going to the Cubs didn't sit well with some folks, because we kind of had our own little hometown story there. But I don't want to end on a down note.
No, I would love to know Uecker's unfiltered thoughts on that situation.
Well, you know what? Someday over a Miller Lite, we'll all get to hear the story. I don't doubt that for one moment. Always appreciate the memories, and folks can always put notes on our social media or in the comment sections if they've got their own Uecker memories that either they like to pass on, or maybe something that hasn't been shared yet. Maybe like Christina, you had your own little brush with Uecker for a little bit back in the day. We'd love to hear all about it. Christina, Lori, thanks so much for a little reminiscing. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you later.
You too, and popping a Miller Lite tonight for Uecker sounds like a good plan.
Absolutely. We'll be back with more after this. You're up north. Mr. Hagen, how are you?
I'm doing so well. How are you two?
Oh, so
Welcome
well.
to the secret show.
Oh yeah, hi everybody.
Oh,
What's that's what
Because
we
we're
call our
totally on
commercial
the internet
breaks.
right now.
oh,
But we can't swear. Don't swear.
bull spit.
There you go.
Shirt balls. Let's see what do we got here. Vilas County Board voting Tuesday on opening county highways to ATVs, UTVs year round.
Yeah,
Didn't they table that?
No, that was Wisconsin Rapids. See that
Oh.
I was gonna bring that up to him. Local ice recovery service has had it. What's an ice recovery service?
Do you
It's
need
like-
your ice rescued?
when your snowmobile or your truck falls through the ice.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so it's kind of the name itself is sort of a misnomer. Like
oh my
ice recovery, more like it should be called "You idiot! You drove on 3 inches of ice."
It doesn't have the same ring to it.
No, it doesn't. Although you could probably find it easier in the Yellow Pages that way. For you young folks out there, Yellow Pages were these things
Right.
called a phone book. A book with all the
It's,
phone
uh,
numbers.
A phone book. Ask your Meemaw.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. There we are. What else have I got for you? Let's see. You're going to be asked about blueberry pancakes, Legos, kazoos, and daisies.
It's Lego. The plural of Lego is Lego.
Like deer and deers.
Deers, yeah, beers.
Deers, shooting deers and drinking beers.
That's us. 15 seconds.
That's so funny.
Yes, it's me again, and I'm back.
The number one song this day, 30 years ago, was by TLC. There's Creep, the number one song this week in 1995. Welcome to today's history lesson on Up North News Radio. It's Tuesday, so let's welcome our weekly guest, Dan Hagen from Newswatch 12 in Rhinelander, WJFW TV.
The
Mr.
hair
Hagen,
gets bigger every week. If you're
What's
listening
that?
on the radio, you're missing out.
what do you got? What do you got going on there?
You know, the hair does whatever it wants to in the morning. It's like an organism.
That is, you're right. That's a little different than what we're used to seeing there.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, can you send it like where? I want to find a clip of you on the news, and I just want to see what the hair does for the big screen.
The before
Well,
and
that's the
after.
problem.
Yeah.
I kind of make like a pompadour of sorts for the TV, but it's much smaller, and then it just grows during the night.
It's what we call the mushroom cloud, folks, if you're not watching on Facebook or YouTube.
You miss out.
Let's see. An act of Congress created the Coast Guard on this day in 1915. Happy anniversary to the Coast Guard. The Lego Company patented the design of Lego bricks, still compatible with the bricks used today on this day in 1958. Parents' feet have never been the same for all the times they've stepped on those damn bricks.
I'll take a Lego before I stepped on a Pez dispenser recently, and that.
I feel like that would just crumble, right?
No.
Oh, no.
Nope.
Shards of plastic in your foot. Yeah. Let's see. The number one song in the UK on this day in 1984 was by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And there's a story about why we're telling about it, but this is Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Now, because it was a reference to safe sex, the BBC had banned the song from airplay. So, needless to say, it went to number one as everybody went out to go get the thing that had been banned.
That did not work. Oh no, it's everywhere now.
So, as it's continuing to climb the charts in the U.S., the number one song in the U.S. this week in 1984 was "Owner of a Lonely Heart" by Yes. Here's our little trivia note. Both songs were produced by a fellow named Trevor Horn, making him the first producer with simultaneous number ones in both countries, but with different acts. On this day in
That
1959,
was the nerdiest thing you've ever done.
and I didn't look it up. I just saw it and said, hey, that's interesting. I'll bet somebody would like to hear that. Or mock me for it. I see which way you came down on that. On this day in 1959, Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin performed together in Vegas for the first time at the Sands Hotel. They would be joined occasionally by fellow Rat Pack members Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, and Peter Lawford. It's boy band time. Dan, we're doing both boy bands, NSYNC and Backstreet.
All right. I know very little about both.
All right, good job for you. Joey Fatone is 48 years old today.
Ugh.
This is NSYNC's Together Again, one of the few where he sang lead on it. Why did you make that noise about Joey Fatone?
Because he's 48.
Yeah, he is 48.
I am a Fatone fan. I'm a Fantone.
Okay.
I love him. All 3 Big Fat Greek Weddings. But when you listen to this song, you're like, yeah, Joey, you'll definitely get a cut. No, it won't be on the radio. It will not be on the radio.
He just premiered on Broadway, and he's the lead in a new play there. So he's still doing okay.
Yeah.
Alan Alda from MASH, 89 years old today. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett is 53. And now let's go to the Backstreet Boys. Nick Carter is 45.
I want it that way. Tell me why ain't nothing but a
So, NSYNC versus Backstreet Boys. You firmly come down on the side of you don't really care.
Yeah, that's about it. It's like people think Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
What?
Die Hard is a Christmas movie, yes.
I don't really care,
And here comes Tony off the top rope saying, wait a minute, the best boy band is 98 Degrees.
No, actually, his exact words are nothing about the best boy band, 90 Degrees. Yeah, nothing because they're not the best boy band, Tony.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
They have one or 2 hits.
They did, and they were really good hits.
They're fine.
The Beatles a boy band at the beginning? Maybe the Beatles are the secret best boy band of all time.
Okay, all right, Dan. I know you like to bring your little pompadour here and try to talk smart. And
let's get back to today's history lesson. I don't want to fight over what's a boy band here. On this day in 1896, in England, the first ever courtroom conviction for a speeding ticket. Walter Arnold of Kent was fined 1 shilling for speeding. How fast was he going, Dan Hagen?
Let's say 10 miles an hour.
8 miles an hour, exceeding
8 kilometers.
Yeah. Well, no, the equivalent of 8. And the speed limit was 2. The speed limit was 2.
So he was on his horse, I'm assuming, or
No, in an automobile. The first ever speeding conviction for an automobile in 1896. Yeah.
Wow.
8. Sarah McLachlan, the singer, is 57 years old today.
doesn't mean much.
This album is amazing.
Such a nice voice, and now all you hear is on those stupid animal rescue commercials. Not that there's something wrong with animal rescue, but it's just her and that song. It's everywhere.
Yep.
On this day in 1985, after an all-night recording session after the American Music Awards, USA for Africa recorded We Are the World to raise funds for Ethiopian famine relief. And 2 years ago today, Miley Cyrus was alone but not lonely in her anthem Flowers.
Write my name in the sand.
It would stay number 1 for 8 weeks. We do remember and memorialize the crew of the Shuttle Challenger. The Challenger disaster was this day in 1986. And this is National Blueberry Pancake Day. So Dan Hagen, blueberry pancakes, yay or nay?
I would say yay, but I'm not a big pancake guy. You can't have that much carbs in the morning. Go protein, right?
All health, all fitness. This is great. Dan Hagen and his hair. Thanks for visiting this week. Have a wonderful day. All right. We'll be back at the second hour of Up North News next on the Civic Media Radio Network.
No regret.
I cut a little tight there, but there was a lot of stuff going on. Mr. Hagen, thank you so much. And we'll talk a little bit more next week.
We missed an opportunity to do improv on the first ever speeding ticket. So I just think that would have been funny.
Do you
All
know
right.
why I pulled you over? I was going too fast. Honk, honk.
I wish more people had seen not Tommy Boy, Black Sheep was kind of like the follow up that
Yes.
Spade and
Yeah.
Farley did. And at one point they're smoking pot in the car. The windows are all rolled up, and the cop pulls them over and says to Chris Farley, "Do you know how fast you were going?" I don't know, 70, 72, 73. I don't know. 8. You were going 8 miles an hour.
And usually when I pull people over, they pull off to the shoulder of the road.
It was such a, like nobody saw that movie compared
Right.
to Tommy Boy, so you can't cite it, but it was a good one in its own right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. See
Talk
you
to you later. Bye.
Bye.
What?
Hey.
Oh my God,
Hey.
it's written below are the secret show.
Welcome back.
Thank you guys.
How
are you?
was it?
It was good. It was good. I needed it.
Did you miss us?
I did, of course.
Did not. Good Lord.
I did.
Come on.
I'm going to say she did miss us, Pat. I'm going to accept the compliment to which I was making her say.
You should.
Okay. I can see the point. She missed us.
I win.
Brittany inside her head goes, no, I didn't. I don't miss this.
Who are all these people walking in the studio?
Uh-oh.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Hans Breitenmoser.
Good morning. Welcome back to Up North News Radio, unabashedly Wisconsin, brought to you by Courier Newsroom and carried by our friends here on the Civic Media Radio Network. 7:06 on this Tuesday morning, January 28th. Nice to have you along. Hans Breitenmoser will be joining us later this hour. He's a dairy farmer in the Merrill area and just every couple of weeks or so to talk about things in Madison or Washington that might impact the rural Wisconsin economy, farming, the food supply, natural resources, local government, you name it. And so this is our first visit with him since Donald Trump took office. Already a lot of actions being taken or threatened, and we'll get Hans's take on the impact across rural Wisconsin coming up in just a bit. We'll also talk to Chad Holmes from 98.9 WXCO. But first, in a correction that I have to make from our last hour, and it's a very important correction that needs to be made. Brittany Merlot is back from vacation today. Today she is here, and Robin Tigerton says, welcome back to the best meteorologist around. The Snow Queen is back.
DJ Flip Mix.
What?
How you doing?
Oh, I am fantastic. I dragged some of that nice warm air back with me. My gosh, today we're going to feel so good.
So you were in a warm place.
I was.
And what was the most extreme activity you did?
Ooh, extreme. I didn't go too crazy this time. I would probably say I went to an island that was hit by Hurricane Helene, and I got to see all of the destruction, helped clean up some of that stuff. So it was a little dangerous, but not extreme.
That is really not in line with what Greg was telling me an hour ago.
No.
Well, I didn't. Well,
See-
first of all, I had no idea. I just figured you were doing something.
Awesome.
You
Yeah.
weren't just laying
Hang
on a
gliding
beach
or
reading a book, which
Right.
is fine if you wanted to do that. But you went on a vacation and you helped hurricane cleanup.
Yeah. That's what
I am
do.
like the worst.
We are terrible
person
people. We are
on earth.
so not worthy to have you on this program.
I yelled at a guy in a different car because he skipped the light. Like that. But you're like, you know what? I got to go help people. I got to make sure.
On my vacation. It's just, wow.
Warm weather was included, so it was good. Two good things. To
Oh,
go.
God, I'm going on
Yeah.
vacation tomorrow. I got to do something good for the
Now
world.
you got it. Yeah, no pressure there. Rob says, good morning from Tigerton. It's partly cloudy and 18 calm winds, but the wind machine will pick up this afternoon. I had supper at my sister Lori's house in Caroline. I took pictures between my sister Lori's house and Highway 29 at the top of the hill along County G, south of 29 in western Shawano County. He goes on to talk about our segment last hour about Bob Uecker and how much he loved the old light beer commercials, his call of the final out of the 82 ALCS against California when the Brewers won the pennant and went on to the World Series. Rob also wanted to note that Vin Scully called one of the most famous NFL games, the 1981 championship game when the Niners defeated the Cowboys with Dwight Clark's famous touchdown catch. A lot of people associate Pat Summerall and John Madden with CBS Sports, but Vin Scully was a fixture along with Hank Stram on CBS Sports for many years as well.
Those are just great names. Hank Stram, Pat Summerall, and
Vin Scully.
Yep. Vin Scully.
Yep. So all that from Rob and Tigerton, who started off by telling us the weather there, and you did in fact bring a little warm weather back with you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. 50s are not out of the question today, especially in the southern parts of the state and off west. We're looking at highs from about the upper 30s to upper 40s. It is going to be a very windy day where we do have a wind advisory in effect around Lake Michigan. Gusts are going to be reaching about 40 miles per hour throughout the state, even up to nearly 50 into those lakeshore areas. So it is going to be a wild, windy day, but a warm one. It is going to feel fantastic out there. We do have an up and down week, though, with warm front today, cold front tomorrow, warm front Thursday, cold front Friday. So a lot of up and down, but we will go back to the upper 20s to upper 30s tomorrow, and then even warmer into Thursday, where we will be into those mid 40s to low 50s. So a pretty interesting week and a warm one.
Yeah, and look, we're happy to take it. We're happy to be back together for all of a day. As Tony notes on YouTube, the band is back together for a day, because then Greg starts his vacation tomorrow, and then mine shortly after that, with Bach in the Dock on the way as well. Kristen Lyerly is going to help fill in while I'm away. Brittany, I hope you'll help her along on this. You know,
Oh, I will.
Still learning this radio business. She's rather shy. You know.
I need help too. Hello, I'm not good at this. That's fine.
We're going to agree to disagree on that one. Brittany, thank you so much. Glad you're back.
Thank you, guys. Have a
Missed
great
you.
day.
Bye.
Missed you.
Today on the Maggie Dawn Show, we will be hearing from former U.S. Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. He's in Wisconsin today holding a news conference at the state capitol in the same room where the fake electors met. Maggie's going to talk to him about President Trump pardoning some 1,500 criminals who beat him and other law enforcement officers. And he also has thoughts on Attorney General candidate Brad Schimmel, who whined that the insurrectionists weren't getting special treatment by the courts. That's coming up in the 2 p.m. hour. In the 3 p.m. hour, Sean Fediplace from Main Street Alliance will talk about Medicaid expansion as a priority for small businesses. Small business owners are always looking to find and retain good workers, and that gets easier if there's a level playing field out there where folks can access stable and affordable health insurance. Again, that's 3 p.m. hour on the Maggie Dawn Show. Civic Media is also reaching out to tell you that if you would like to help the folks that have been harmed by the wildfires in Southern California, there's a group out there, a nonprofit called Convoy of Hope. It's a nonprofit helping provide immediate relief to those in need. If you'd like to learn more about Convoy of Hope, head over to the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us, and click on the banner at the top of the website for more information. 7:13 right now. The Bucks were winners in Utah last night, 125-110. The Bucks are in Portland tonight. Greg, before Dan Hagan had to leave from WJFW Newswatch 12, we had such a full history segment today, we couldn't really get to one of the local stories that he's covering.
Yeah.
But it should be noted that one of the headlines there at the WJFW news site is local ice recovery service has had busy start to the winter season.
Yeah.
And we were teasing him about, headlines are tricky. I'm like, I didn't know there was ice that needed to be recovered.
Yeah.
But
Pat, I have something for you. It's your ice.
Oh, you found it. You got it back. No, it's not that. It's recovery from those who go through the ice.
Yeah.
So the story is about one particular company, Bulldog Off-Road Recovery Service. This is what they've had to fish out of waters up north so far. A four-wheeler, 2 snowmobiles, 4 side-by-sides, 2 trucks, and 1 ice shack have all needed to be pulled out of the water already this season. So the owner says he's well on track to surpass his average of 12 recoveries per season. People,
there should be the 12 things of recovery.
Yes.
Ice recovery, and a partridge in a pear tree.
You know what? The partridge would know better than to not go on thin ice.
Agreed.
With its little tiny bird brain. So don't do that, folks. Learn from the story up there at Newswatch 12. Take it easy out there. I know it's been really cold, but that doesn't necessarily matter in some places, especially with a current. And despite the the laughter, it's a serious business. So, folks,
I don't want anyone to get hurt.
No,
I don't want anyone injured. I certainly don't want anyone to lose their lives. But we're at that point now. We had a nice deep freeze, but the warm weather's coming on fast. I don't live around water and ice like in that sense where I'm out on there. I didn't live a life on the ice with like fishing and whatnot. But even I know Probably not a good idea, bro. No, don't go out there.
Don't.
Go on the land. The land is nice and solid.
Exactly. Let's see. In the news here, Senator Ron Johnson was on Up Front over the weekend through WISN TV, talking about how he wants to fast track appointments for President Trump's cabinet picks. So we've got a little audio clip to play from him. But what Johnson wants is a far different approach than how his fellow Republicans are handling confirmations in Madison. Johnson's calling for recess appointments, a process designed to cut off debate among Democrats who have concerns about Trump's nominees. Johnson says they're just stalling.
I hope people recognize the real abuse and obstruction being put up by Democrats. Within 3 days, President Obama had 12 of his cabinet nominees approved and confirmed. We've had now a couple. And Democrats are going to keep running out the clock here, denying President Trump the confirmed secretaries for his departments. I think it's pretty grotesque. From my standpoint, this is exactly why we may want to and have to use recess appointments.
Again, disingenuous doesn't begin to describe sometimes the things that Ron Johnson talks about. If you want to abuse the confirmation process, ask for confirmation for people who are singularly unqualified for the office. Start with that. But more importantly to this point, Johnson's sense of urgency on confirming these appointments sure stands in stark contrast to how his fellow Republicans in the Wisconsin legislature are handling confirmations for Governor Tony Evers. Evers is starting his 7th year in office. His cabinet has 17 department heads. Only 6 have been confirmed. The rest are able to serve in their positions, but Republicans are using a loophole that enables them to fire any of the unconfirmed appointees at any time. That was never the intent of the confirmation process. But the lack of a deadline, because people thought that the parties would have a good faith effort in the legislature, but that lack of a deadline means that Republican senators have twisted the advise and consent process into one where they can fire an official at any time for any reason by simply now holding the confirmation vote and rejecting the nomination made long ago. Republicans have so far fired about 24 officials over the past 6 years, ranging from a cabinet member to members of the UW Board of Regents, the State Judicial Commission, the Election Commission, the Medical Examining Board, the Natural Resources Board. About a year and a half ago, they even fired a domestic violence survivor whom Evers had appointed to the Governor's Council on Domestic Abuse, just because they didn't like that person's politics. By refusing to confirm more than 100 other Evers nominees for various posts, that has also enabled some appointees from former Republican Governor Scott Walker to stay on long after their original terms expired. So for Senator Ron Johnson to say that Congress needs to fast-track Donald Trump's nominations, that may or may not be the case. But maybe he could start by calling out some of his fellow Republicans for a much more grotesque abuse of obstructing cabinet and office nominations. More coming up after this on Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is not the typical theme from MASH that you're used to hearing at the start of the old 70s sitcom. Sounds more like if there was a jazz pianist in the officers club there.
Yeah.
But I thought we might shake things up a little bit just to note that Alan Alda turns 89 years old today.
Can I tell you a fun piece of trivia about this song?
Sure.
Robert Altman's son wrote the lyrics that's only sung in the movies.
Right.
It became a top 10 hit, I think, or maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, Robert Altman's like, yeah, I made the movie. My son became a millionaire. That's fine.
There's money in the music.
Yep.
There's money.
Writing the lyrics.
Yes. Speaking of which, forgot to put this in my notes. It just occurred to me. Did you happen to catch any of the 3-hour special last night on 50 years of music on Saturday Night Live?
No. I didn't see. That's what I wish they would put. Like, they dropped that 4-part documentary.
Yeah.
But
that was only on Peacock.
But like, I want to watch like I want them to have it's 50 years. Have a list of things that are coming out. I know that the anniversary special is next month.
Right.
But like, have a list of things you're doing for the year, because like,
yeah, I mean, it just came and went, which I've got to think they're going to replay it a few different times just because the music is so good, unless they have a problem clearing the rights. But it's not your typical TV special, because it's basically a 3-hour documentary done by Questlove. And he does an amazing job. The mashups of 50 years of songs, how he can make one song flow into the other, which I know a lot of DJs do that, but now do it with video as well. And then some of the stories behind the original songs, like Eddie Murphy talking about James Brown in the hot tub and how that skit came about, There's another famous one with Justin Timberlake. I can't tell you the name of the skit, but it was on the Christmas show and involved some Christmas presents.
It's something in a box.
It's in a box, we only watched the first half of it because it's the 3-hour special.
Yeah.
We're going to watch the rest of it tonight. So if you've either DVR'd it or can get it through streaming services at some point, I would highly recommend the 50 years of Saturday Night Live music. Because you don't get so much how some skits, they don't really hit the mark. This is all music. This is all stories about the music, and folks would really like that. So
I'm just looking, I'm giving it a cursory search. I'm going to watch it today when I get home. I'll be packing, so I'll have it in the background and watch it. And Questlove watched every single episode of SNL, and the name of the documentary is Ladies and Gentlemen. I love that so much.
The one thing that's been consistent throughout SNL is that the musical thing always starts with "Ladies and Gentlemen," and then they introduce the
Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters. Exactly, just like that. So, good show for folks to watch. Over on the Up North News website, upnorthnewswi.com, a couple of news stories to tell you about. This week on Friday, along with Kia Vakil, we're going to talk to national correspondent Isabel Soisson, and she will talk about her new article, how states with abortion bans or near abortion bans are losing their young adults. I mean, people are leaving states with abortion bans, tens of thousands of people by the calendar quarter. People are voting with their feet where they would like to settle down, where they'd like to raise a family, and while raising that family, not have their reproductive rights interfered with. So Isabel's piece is really something to watch there. Also up on the website is my new opinion column on the firing of Milwaukee TV meteorologist Sam Kuffel. And I spoke briefly about it last week. I'm pretty sure I used the phrase gutless wonders when talking about the management at CBS 58, because again, she was fired for posts on her personal social media account criticizing Elon Musk for his, shall we say, Nazi-adjacent salute. Now, the editorial goes on to talk about how there are a couple of lessons to be learned from this. And most folks are only learning the one lesson, and that is that you should watch your language. Okay, that's fair, but that should be the case anytime. You should choose your words carefully. And maybe a colleague or a friend would have seen these posts and said, Sam, I don't know, might get you in trouble. But again, we're talking about criticizing Nazis. This shouldn't be a problem. And that the real lesson to learn here is to, yes, choose your language carefully, choose your imagery, choose your presentation, whatever, but choose it and use it. Use your voice. You have access to a global audience out there. Not to say you're going to go viral, but everybody has the capacity to, based on the strength of their message. Now, maybe Sam Kuffel should have just put up a 3-word post. I'm against Nazis. Maybe instead of criticizing the photo with Elon Musk, she just posts the photo and says, what do you see in this photo? And let other people talk about, the inappropriateness of it. Neither of those approaches would necessarily make everybody happy. My point is, it would center the dialogue where it belongs. The dialogue belongs on Nazism and Elon Musk's gesture, not Sam Kuffel's career arc. She deserves to be someplace else, and she deserves to be at a place that will back her up. One that will say, well, maybe she didn't say things the way that we would have said it, but she criticized Nazism. We're okay with that. Please direct any further comments to that brick wall, because Sam's ours and we're keeping her. But the management at CBS 58 was too cowardly to do that. And what we need now in this era, more than any other time, are newsrooms and publishers that are willing to be heroes and not cower. Freedom of the press has never been more important than at this time. And instead, we have politicians who are making noises about suing reporters and newspapers and newsrooms, threatening to put reporters in jail. And the thing to do is not to shy away, but to say, we are carrying on, again, with words that are chosen carefully. Every news story is properly edited and vetted. The process is transparent. Sources are identified as much as possible. And then you go forward on these stories, because if you don't, if you pull your punches, you're not going to gain anything out of it. You're still going to upset the people in power in some other way, and they're still going to come after your license. And by the way, the point is not to pull anybody's license. When they talk about, the new head of the FCC, Trump's head of the FCC, going after CBS, NBC, ABC, he's not necessarily looking to pull the licenses, but by starting protracted public fights, he's trying to persuade, shall we say, all of the other newsrooms to pull their punches, to not have their investigations into ways that your taxpayer dollars might be on the verge of being severely abused. Don't let that happen. You call out places that are bad actors, like that station in Milwaukee, and put your loyalty in those who are going to have fearless newsrooms going forward. Hans Breitenmoser is next. You're Up North. Senior Breitenmoser, how are you?
Hans, can you hear us?
Are you there, sir? Hello?
Hans?
Uh-oh, Hans.
Oh, no.
Can you guys hear me? Because I can't hear you.
Yes,
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yep.
I can't hear you.
Uh-oh. What is going? This is reminiscent of 2 weeks ago with Hans and his guest. Let's see here. See how we can put this together. Because now we don't have the other guest to convey the questions the way that Hans conveyed the questions to our guest a week or two ago.
Hans, sign out.
Your seed from both white mold and SDS.
We can hear that. Can you hear us?
Did you hear that? We heard that. All right.
All right, let's see if that works.
Right. There, folks. For the rest of this break, we bring you tension, anticipation.
This move is what I call the old, did you turn it off and turn it on again?
Which sounds so dumb, but it works so often. And that's in no way depressing. All right. Stay tuned, folks. We'll see. All right, let's see if that's any better. Are you there, Hans? No.
All right.
Still can't hear you guys.
Okay, we're going to have you call in. So we could call 855-752-4842. Oh, look at you. You beat me to it.
Good morning, Mr. Breitenmoser. All right, I want you to do me a favor while I got you on the phone. Hey, Pat, bring him back in again.
Well, okie dokie. I will. Let's see. All right.
You can hear us?
Yes, I can. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
This
We
is
got
what you get for hiring Fred frickin' Flintstone to be on the radio for crying out loud.
Hey! You feed America. We're simply just doing our ha-has. We're fine. It's great.
Well, yabba dabba do, I think.
There you go. All right, so you got it nailed down. And Greg, I sent you a note. If you still have access to that Brooke Rollins clip, Trump's ag secretary about mass deportations.
Yep, I got it.
Okie dokie. All right, all that and more coming up in 45 seconds.
Wonderful.
All right, we don't have Jimmy on just because it's, a January day, but for history purposes, it was on this day in 1985 that Jimmy Buffett opened his first ever Margaritaville retail store, named for his 1977 hit. It opened up in Key West, selling beach-inspired apparel like Caribbean Soul T-shirts and flip-flops, and it took a little while. It caught on. And from that one little Margaritaville shop came other products, other brands, of course, the concerts, all making the late Jimmy Buffett a billionaire off of beach music. Pick your lane, folks, and do well in it. Hans Breitenmoser joins us now, a dairy farmer from the Merrill area, where we talk a bit about the rural economy and things that could be affecting us, no matter whether we're on a farm or not. Hans, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pat. I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Thanks for being here. Look, the first one is a gimme. And look, we've talked about two of the main things previously, mass deportations and tariffs. But now Trump is in office, and he's trying to make both of these things happen. And folks will recall, I played this the other day, but this is Trump's new ag secretary, or at least still the nominee, Brooke Rollins, when asked about mass deportations, knowing full well the impact that's going to have on America's food supply. And this is what she had to say.
Listen, The president's vision of a secure border and a mass deportation at a scale that matters is something I support. I was his domestic policy director in the last White House. I have built and led an organization alongside Chad Wolf, our former Secretary of Homeland Security, at the America First Policy Institute. I want to be extremely transparent, and I think that you deserve that. That is my commitment, is to help President Trump deploy his agenda in an effective way.
Well, I mean, you got to give her credit saying she wanted to be transparent. And Hans, as you know, a lot of people wondered if she was qualified for the post. She had a bit of a small farm background, but no real management experience in agriculture policy or anything. And honestly, I think that statement alone provides the transparency that she truly is not qualified to be ag secretary if she can't account for finding some kind of middle ground between, the current situation and mass deportation. Maybe I'm being too harsh.
No, I think you're reading it pretty fairly. I feel like this is just another situation where we're going to have absolute loyalists in department heads in positions of power, and their main obligation is to make sure that Donald Trump is happy, and their secondary obligation at best is to run the department that run the organizations that they're led to, that they're hired to lead. If not completely destroy those organizations from the inside out, which we could talk about, the EPA and some others.
Oh, yeah, very, very much so. Tony writes on YouTube, let me be very clear. I am a rubber stamp, which is really what they're saying. There's literally no pushback on whatever crazy thing that he might utter or whatever extreme idea from Project 2025 that they want to implement. Now, one of the differences, before we get back to, the harms that tariffs could do, but let's advance it for just a minute. Because you've heard from officials in Canada and Denmark. This weekend, you had pushback from Colombia. The difference from last time around is it certainly appears that other countries know now what to expect from Donald Trump, and they're willing to push back. And while that back and forth might be interesting for reporters, my point being, they're ready to push back right away in a way that's going to hurt American exports and the prices that American consumers pay. It seems to me they're not going to be caught off guard by anything Trump does this time around.
Right, I would agree. I mean, they've seen this before, and now they like, I think the American public understand that this is 2.0. This is on steroids. This is a guy that believes, and we have reason to believe that he will get away with a lot of the things that he would like to do, based on the members of his party who are unwilling to stand up to anything that he does. So I think you're right. There's other countries and other policymakers around the globe saying, okay, this is what we can expect, and we're going to plan for that and so forth. And as it relates to ag, we've had this conversation before. When we're talking trade, American trade means American agricultural products. It just does. And so that we're going to be negatively impacted, and people around the world aren't going to starve. They're going to find other ways to get the job done. Yeah. Brazil exists, and they will Canada, all these other countries that produce agricultural products. I'm not saying that it's not going to be, it's clearly going to be difficult for these countries, but I just feel like ag is going to take it on the chin as a result of some of these policies.
And by the way, when it does, that raises prices for consumers, as do just tariffs overall. And so for a campaign that was allegedly run about inflation and the price of eggs, which, is going to be a running joke throughout this administration, I fear, you're seeing nothing yet at this point that would attack inflation. And instead, you're seeing things that would exacerbate it. For example, over the weekend, I mentioned Colombia, where, again, the mass deportation plan is to not only use regular commercial planes, charter planes, but military planes as well. military planes need express permission to land in other countries, that whole invasion thing. And Colombia said, no, we don't want you bringing, deportees back here in military planes. Well, Trump right away threatened to slap tariffs on Colombia. Colombia, without skipping a beat, was like, great, we'll put some tariffs on you. How much would you like your cup of coffee to cost? I don't think, Hans, it's a real winner to pick on a good trading partner that's bringing a lot of the coffee that we like to consume into this part of the world.
Well, right, and for what? So that we can have public policy that's more, spectacular and more stagecraft. I mean, people can get moved from one country to the other without being shackled in military aircraft. This makes for great right-wing television and so forth. And that's what this is about. It has little to do with kicking criminals out of the country, and more to do with getting the political base fired up. I really think that when you look at what's being accomplished versus what's the damage that's being done in the process, the bang for your buck is not spectacular here.
No, and at first it was being framed as Colombia backing down, but upon further explanation or exploration, it was pretty clear that it was the Trump administration that backed down, because all Colombia wanted, they said, look, we'll take the military flights in. This isn't about what plane you're using, but you've got to treat our people more humanely. They saw people getting off these planes in, I forget if it was Guatemala or Brazil, getting off, like you said, in shackles, in handcuffs. These aren't people that were going to hijack the plane or anything like that. And it was all for show. And the Trump administration backed down. So we won't have a trade war with Colombia, not this week. But I mean, day after day after day in this administration, Hans, we get a new threat of tariffs, whether it's involving, Colombia or Greenland or any place else. And Hans, again, we've made the point that tariffs do have their place in trade negotiations and things like that. But when you're doing this every day, it really shows Trump's preference to more or less be a king rather than let Congress also play a role in trade policy. Tariffs are something the executive can do unilaterally, but again, with caution. There's no caution involved with this guy.
Well, again, Pat, it has nothing to do with what's best for the country. It's all about show business. I really believe that it's just 100% about show business from a person who just has been told his entire life that he's better than the room, smarter than the room, and so forth. So we somehow have to get back to a place of good public policy and understand where that comes from. And I really feel like what has to happen is we need to get Republican voters and Republicans in office who have enough spine to say what's right and what's wrong, and not just blindly follow the king and do whatever whim he has.
Right.
I can't believe that they're not worn out by this by now. It's just exhausting.
I know. And again, bring it back to us. Bring it back to the folks in Wisconsin and the prices we pay at the store. Everything else, like you said, is stagecraft, which takes me to our other point of something that's really going to hit Wisconsin farms hard. And that is this new initiative by Trump to put some kind of a freeze on federal spending and federal aid. Now, this is aid that's already been approved. They might be disaster relief aid and farm assistance, education grants, loans to small businesses, HIV drugs sitting on shelves in clinics in hotspots around the world that now aren't going to be distributed. In all these cases, this is money that Congress long ago approved, and Trump is trying to avoid spending. Much the same way, by the way, that Republicans in the legislature are holding on to money that's supposed to clean up water and help children read. The money's been approved, but they're continuing to sit on it. Hans, if this whole spigot dries up and we're talking conservation programs and disaster relief, how quickly could Wisconsin farmers and then consumers start to feel this?
Well, I think pretty quickly and in a number of different ways. and one of the things that should be pointed out here too is the Farm Service Agency, which is the agency that takes these dollars, from the feds essentially, and distributes them at the local level. And those farm service agencies are in our local communities. I was on that committee for 3 terms, 9 years. And you got to have sort of a heart for the people who work at these agencies. They're our neighbors, they're our friends. Oftentimes they're, farm owners and spouses of owners themselves and so forth. They have a connection to ag in a big way. And now they're sitting here going, okay, I thought I knew what I was going to do this morning, and now I'm not sure. What am I supposed to do? So you create this ridiculous confusion for people who are just trying to do their jobs. And when you take it then the next step further to the farm gate, this not only has an impact on that individual farmer, but think about all the people that farmer deals with, right? All the vendors that farmer deals with, the lenders that farmer deals with. If there's money that was supposed to be coming through a pipeline and suddenly from one day to the next, that money stops, that has an impact on all the things that farmer was going to do and all the people that he's dealing with. It's going to impact so many other people. For what? For what? What has been gained?
Which, again, let's be honest. Let's be clear here. We're not talking about, well, don't try to get any spending reductions and don't go after, any wasteful spending or make any changes. You can do those things. We have a regular budget process to do that in. And maybe people don't like the process, but this is about as close a case to throwing the baby out with the bathwater as it gets because of so much genuine public service that is either going to be ended or at least frozen for now. And I've got to think that, planting season isn't that far away, people making their plans, and it's got to make it a little bit more confusing as to what you might be planning to do.
Well, absolutely. These subsidies to farmers are not the kind of, huge dollars, but they do have an impact, and they are a thing, and they're a line item, and they're a consideration, and they're something that historically could be relied upon, at least, in terms of it's okay. We know that this is a solid thing. This isn't something that's going to change like the weather. So it's just one more thing that becomes out of the control of people who are already dealing with a lot of things outside of our control.
And getting more curveballs thrown at them unnecessarily.
Exactly.
Hans Breitenmoser, thank you. As always, appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks a lot.
All right. Chad Holmes is coming up next. You're Up North.
Cut my heel, had to cruise on back home. But there's booze.
There we go. All right. We're in break. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Talk to you
Take it
later.
easy, Hans.
Yep. Take care.
be looking to talk to Chad Holmes in just a minute or two here, but let's see, from Alicia on YouTube, it seems ag takes it on the chin when it comes to a good deal of policy. Yes, in fact it does. This is a part of America, rural America, that is taken for granted by Republicans to such a degree that if you have enough distractions based on culture wars or that it's other people's spending that you want to cut, they won't necessarily pick up on the cuts that are being made to them. So, again, an important point that Alicia's noting for us. It is with some trepidation that I bring Chad Holmes in because we know how bad his voice was. We know that we talked to him over the weekend at the holiday party for Civic Media, and now I'm very fearful that we're just going to hear the whispers of what's left of Chad Holmes. Chad, good morning.
Good morning, Pat.
Hey, there it is. The voice is back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is good news.
It's almost back.
I would buy that record. Chad Holmes, The Whispers of Chad.
Mr. Wassum from Awesome.
My
Tony.
goodness. Tony with all the nicknames for everybody.
I know. Thank you, Tony, for that on YouTube. How you feeling?
Better.
Okay.
Somehow Sunday was still terrible. Then yesterday morning it came back to a workable level.
Good. All right. I think I mentioned this yesterday, but folks might have missed it. We had this bowling get together for Civic Media folks across, Northwest Wisconsin, western parts of north central Wisconsin. Chad was there at Wagner's in Eau Claire, and now Chad is a very competitive soul. He takes, he takes part in the World Series of Poker. He knows how to look for a proper outcome. And I was so amazed at Chad's ability to purposefully bowl a game where, because the boss and his producer were playing in the same game with him, you somehow managed to finish one pin behind your producer and your boss. Chad, that's a accuracy on a bowling ball that I could only dream of.
I know where my bread is buttered.
No, this is where you honestly say you had nothing to do with it. But go ahead, take credit for being able to.
I wanted to win, and then in the second game I lost to the boss by 3 pins by choking in the 10th. So I was annoyed for both games.
Honestly, Chad, I'm with you. There's some people out there who get competitive playing baseball or football, I become a different human when I bowl, and I'm not a joy to be around.
Again, I don't bowl as often, too many aches and pains now.
Yeah.
So I just watch my score go down and down now over the years. Sherry, meanwhile, who's not much of a bowling fan, but boy, she bowled out of her mind at this thing. So maybe we need to take up a little more bowling. It was a very nice activity all around to get everybody together. It was good to see everybody.
No, it was fantastic, and I just wish I could have talked, but other than that, it went really, really well.
Yeah. Well, we did try. You could notice we were all kind of leaning into him, like, "What'd you say? What'd you say?" But
it was awful.
We eventually got to him there. What are you talking about on the program out there these days?
Oh, nothing that kind of jumps out at me. And by the way, you really you got my day off to a lousy start whenever I hear Ron Johnson as I'm sitting getting ready to go.
Sorry, Chad.
It's like, thanks a lot, Ron. But, something that came to mind is, you remember the old book from Hillary Clinton, It Takes a Village?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now it just feels like we're completely to the opposite. I mean, listening to the headlines this morning, hearing about grants and other sources of funding being taken away, hearing about our country saying you can't talk to the World Health Organization. You can't talk to our traditional allies. What's going on here? I mean, it literally feels like the whole perspective of our country is it's all about the individual, all by themselves.
Because here's what it is. Hillary Clinton got it right. For mankind, for humankind to thrive and be sustained, we have to depend on each other. We have to work with each other. It does take a village. But there are some people, most of them coming from a wealthier class, who love to pass along the myth of rugged individualism, that it was, the lonely cowboy that conquered this country and built the West. Baloney. Those cowboys worked together, and they needed help, and they needed the federal assistance to get the railroads, and anything that you can name these days that in their mind keeps going the myth of the rugged individualist can be blown up by the things that they need. Their big example right now is the entrepreneur, the businessman. Just leave the businessman alone and he or she will be fine. No, they won't. And you watch as these programs start to dry up, how much it hurts people who had believed in the myth of rugged individualism.
No, you're exactly right. And it's just, and it go that's down the line. And even the DEI issue. And I saw this wonderful social media posting comparing the qualifications of Lloyd Austin, the previous Secretary of Defense, to Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
And is this really what they're trying to accomplish here? Where a guy that literally had to have a dozen different levels of success in his military career to be considered to be the Secretary of Defense, and for this guy, all they have to do, well,
be a talking head. Be a talking head and a minion. Greg, you were going to say something about it too.
I was just going to say it's rugged individualism until they fail and they need our money, our taxpayer dollars to bail them out.
That is exactly it.
That is a perfect.
All right. Well, we got Chad Holmes all wound up, so you're going to want to tune into this show on 98.9 WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Thank you, Chad. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Greg Bach is back in 2 hours for Matt Nair on air as well. Tomorrow on the program here, we will have Christopher Thiel, who will tell us how legislators are looking to hide from taxpayers how much school vouchers are costing. There's a new budget trick on the way. Meanwhile, Republicans in some other states have had enough of the blank check when it comes to voucher schools. So tune in for that tomorrow. Up North News is the Wisconsin outlet for Courier, a pro-democracy news network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Have a great Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. here up north.